Hi, family. Grateful recovering addict named Kat.
Hi, Kat.
It's an honor to be able to share the NA message of hope and connection. And that's what I wasn't connected before recovery. What I've realized is that my story is only now important in connecting with another addict who may have similarities to mine, because with some healing of my story, that I now understand that my pain had a purpose. So a little bit about my how I got here. I'm the oldest of 5 kids in a Catholic family in Marion, Ohio, and both my parents were addicts. But that was my normal. It was completely normal to me. I thought everybody lived the way we did, and secrets were kept, and everything was, I didn't even know it was not authentic, because that's just the way it was. So, but we didn't share what happened in our house, and my mom would regularly pass out with a suicide attempt and go to the hospital, psych ward, and Grandma would come and stay with us, and we'd all hear that everything's okay, but it didn't feel okay. And that's where I now understand I learned not to trust my intuition, because my inside said, this shit's fucked up. But my people, my grown-ups, all said, it's okay, everything's fine, but don't tell anybody what's going on here. And so I learned how to tell secrets, or not tell secrets, and to lie about what was. I learned how to counterfeit my own mom's signature so I could skip school whenever I wanted to and watch Star Trek, the original, in the 60s, 70s. I'm 61 now, and my clean date is January 15th, 1989. So that's a miracle that, and I say that I'm a grateful recovering addict, because if I hadn't gone big and bad with my addiction and caused myself enough pain to qualify here, I might still be a 61-year-old woman with a miserable life, but not miserable enough to do something about. So thank God my pain was big enough and loud enough for me to hear. And that what happened for me was my family had an intervention in 1989. But before that, I had my first Little Kings and smoked pot with teenagers, and learned about sex and everything that makes you feel good. And I was on a path to, this makes me feel good, so I'm going to do it. And my mom kept trying suicide and failing. And so I graduated from high school and started hitchhiking around the country with a couple of women. And, I was the younger end of the hippies, but they were, so I was 19 and they were 23 hitchhiking. So we get down to the Mardi Gras, and we have a dresser drawer and a box spring for our room for $25 a week, and it's party time. No need for security, no need for where's my next meal coming from, because bad things won't happen to me. There was, I think it may be a youth thing that you think you're invincible, but it worked for a while. So anyway, I got with this guy, a Puerto Rican guy, who made me feel really good. So that must be love. And even though he whipped me, beat me, and made me write bad checks, he still made me feel good and told me he loved me. So his actions didn't match his words, but that's what I learned. If all you have to do is tell me what I want to hear. You don't have to do the next right thing. And so, so I stayed in insane relationships for many years and didn't understand what was wrong with that. But I could always point to the other person and say, if only they would act a certain way, then we would be happy. So, so that lie that I was telling myself was, you know, the what I believed to be true, because I didn't know any better. And I've heard that 5 seconds before you're unaware, before you're aware, you're unaware. You know, that time when the way you think life works is and it's not working and you don't know why. What I assume that it must be me. I must be the fuck up, the one that can't figure it out, that everybody else seems to be happy, but not me, so it must be me. I didn't realize that so many were covering up their pain just like I was. So in 1986, I had stopped hitchhiking. I went back to college and I graduated from OSU with the lowest grade point average you can graduate with. And yeah, and my Puerto Rican guy, Angel, was doing what he did, and his cousin Lefty moved in from Puerto Rico and told us that he showed us a new way to get high with beer cans and ashes, and said, as long as you don't use a pipe, you can't be an addict. So, you know, that met my criteria of lies. Okay, good, then I won't do it that way. So now I'm a graduate civil engineer in my field, working for a company, and in Marion or Columbus, Ohio, right across from where I work, there's a big park, Franklin Park, that you know, there was some drug activity nearby, and I remember going, being there at Franklin Park. It's 5:30, 6 a.m. and birds are chirping and buses are starting to pick up kids, and all I want to do is say, don't turn on the light. I don't want to see the light. And I'm copping, you know. I have to be at work in an hour and a half. And, you know, so there was two lives going on, you know, of this is who I am in the daytime, this is who I am after work. And I'm selling plasma to get gas money, and I'm going to the food pantry to get potatoes and milk. You know, because the potatoes of all different varieties was our primary meal. So, you know, an addict like me thinks that nobody can tell what's going on. I am slick. And I didn't realize that, you know, when an ostrich puts its head in the sand, their ass is all out. That's what was showing. I think I'm okay. I'm looking fine. I'm you know, I'm getting a paycheck and then it's gone. But so 1986, that's what I graduated from college. My mother, I found my mother when she shot herself in the head, and Angel was in the workhouse for DUI number 6. So, you know, my life is not working. My mom's life didn't work. And what I realized that I believe to be true is your feelings can kill you. They killed my mom, you know, so whatever I was going to feel about that was not going to happen. And how do you not feel? You just use more. That was my drug of choice by then, more. I don't care what you got. Does it get you high? How high? More? So anyway, that, you know, the last 3 years of my using was in that more state. And so my dad had gotten sober in the other fellowship, and my sister tricked me and said she was going to take me out to dinner. And I didn't want to go out to dinner. I needed to borrow money, but I didn't want to go out to dinner. So I said, okay, sure, let's go out to dinner. And so she tricked me to go into this intervention, and all my brothers and sisters, there's 5 of us, and my dad and a counselor and some AA people, they proceeded to tell me all the lies I'd been telling them, and how many times I borrowed money for the same phone bill. I'd forgotten all those lies. I couldn't keep track of my lies. And so they said, if you don't go to treatment tonight, we're going to cut you off from the family. Now, you know, if you're an addict like me, one of the tools that I learned, I now call it a defective character, is called people pleasing. I'll tell you what you want to hear and then do what the fuck I want. So I said, okay, you're right. It's really bad. Dad, I need a carton of cigarettes. No, you're not kicking Angel out. I love him. So he didn't kick Angel out of the house we were renting, but I did go to treatment with a carton of cigarettes. And they took away all my murder mysteries and gave me a big blue book. I'm like, fuck, what the hell is this? But you know, in treatment, it's like instant connection. Everybody there has done what you've done. You're getting off whatever you've been on, and they put a lot of sweets in front of you. And so it felt really good. And the counselor there said that I had open-ended grief, which meant it didn't have a beginning and an end. And you know, it's kind of like if you let it out of the box, I just didn't know if it was going to get back in. So I didn't let it out of the box. That's how I knew how to handle feelings. So now I'm in my first year of recovery, and you know, doing everything in the Moore way, you know, 20 meetings a day, you know, 20 meetings a week, going to functions and getting involved in service. And, you know, a lot of people, there's a meeting in our area at noon that's very chaotic, and I loved that meeting. If it had been calm and peaceful with a bunch of spiritual people, I said, fuck this shit. I'm out of here. So there is a purpose for all the meetings that we have, all the types and all the people that go to them. Now I don't need to go to that meeting as much as I used to, and it gets on my nerves sometimes, but then it served its purpose. And you know, I don't know how to live by spiritual principles. All I know is if it feels good, do it. And by that point, I had told myself, if I don't feel better after 6 months being in Narcotics Anonymous, I'll go back out and get high. I know how to do that, so why not try something new? And I did. So Angel was still with me. He lasted a year, and then he went back to Allentown, where he was from. And I really started trying to connect. I didn't know that's what I needed, but I knew that every time I went to a meeting that I didn't want to go to, I would feel better that I had gone. And so that was the first time I learned that my feelings, in many ways, don't matter. It's my actions that matter. It's my thoughts that change what happens, you know, because it was always, I feel this, so I do this. There was so little time and space between what I feel and what I do that I could only do what made me feel good. So when I allowed myself to have that time and space of, well, maybe the compulsion and the obsession would leave if you just don't act on it. Just don't take the first one. And so that started to work, you know, and that kept me in meetings a lot. But, you know, I'd go to a meeting and, you know, I'd hear the same readings over and over and over. So I would go in and, you know, like, make a fantasy happen. Like I'd go, okay, we're making a movie now. We might be married in a week or so, but at least we're going to have sex. Because, you know, relationships didn't have to last a long time. They just had to start and finish. So in recovery, it took me a long time to be willing to hear what people that I could see were living by spiritual principles were living. Because they would say, you know, the serenity of, being clean is wonderful, and it's inside. It's not at our dances or in the fellowship, it's in the steps. I'd go to the dances with my spandex mini skirt on, and there'd be old people there and kids, and the lights would be on. I'm like, you're fucking with my fantasy here. I want to be at the bar with, it's dark, I'm going to get my next night out. And, but it wasn't like that. And I would actually connect with somebody, a woman or a man, and, that I would actually have a conversation with, and hear that they felt the way that I felt on some things. So connection started to happen because I was in a place where it could happen. I did try to go to clubs in early recovery and drink near beer, but it quickly became, after 2 hours at a bar, the 11 o'clock hour, that's when I would go to the bar when I was using and bring my own. The people would get drunk and stupid and, get in fights and do all those things. And I didn't like to be around that when I was clean. So it ended up practicality. I didn't want to be there. So I'd go to the NA functions. So now I'm in recovery. I'm sponsoring women. I'm doing all the things I'm supposed to be doing. But, now I'm hearing that I need to have a higher power. Now, the one that I had as a child, said, you have to confess on Sunday whatever you did on Saturday. And, that just, it worked, I guess, because I hadn't gotten hit by lightning and taken off the face of the earth, but I didn't feel anything. And I didn't understand how to find a higher power that I could actually feel connected with. It wasn't until I did research. I was searching for higher power. What does that mean? What does that look like? And somebody told me, why don't you just think of God as love? And, at the end of the meeting, when we're all circled up, you can feel the love, right? And I said, yeah, I do. I can feel that love. And I don't have to, it doesn't have to be an old white man with a beard, sending out lightning bolts. And so what it did was it expanded my concept of what God could be. And so as I started working the steps and saying, what is God's will for me? I could say, well, I haven't violated commandments 1 through 10. Now what? Now what's God's will for me? I'm not murdering. I'm honoring mom and dad, blah, blah, blah. So now what? What does God want me to do, every single day, and to be in his will? So if God is love and my will is my thinking, then God's will is to think with love. And as I tried to understand what that would mean in my life, my will is to think with fear. And that was like the barometer, the checkpoint that I could use to see if I was in God's will. Because if I was going to go on a date with a man, say, or I wanted to go date somebody, because the man-woman relationship was kind of one of the big ones for me. That's how you get happy, is to have a good relationship. It wasn't $1 million. It wasn't being the president of the United States. It's if you have a good relationship, then you're happy. And so that was my fantasy. That was my big lie. As a child, I read Harlequin romances and learned about throbbing members, and and then they lived happily ever after. So that's what I wanted as a grown woman. So now my thinking is what is being examined here. That's what recovery is we're examining all of our beliefs. Mm-hmm. We're saying, did this one work for you? Did going and saying, okay, I'm gonna cheat with that guy. I know he's got a girlfriend, but he might be the one. He might be the one to make me happy. So I'm going to just do it because I know it'll make me feel good. Now that isn't God's will, because my will is about fear. Like, oh no, if I don't do this, I might not have a good love relationship. That's fear. That's my will. But God's will is when it just, when it's God's will, it just kind of flows. It happens. And I don't have to do a whole bunch of shit to get it to happen, which is strange. I'm willing to do a whole bunch of shit to make stuff happen. And I didn't realize that that's not the effort God love wants from me. What love needs is trust that higher power and the universe can make what's supposed to happen happen. What's for me cannot be taken from me. And so there's no reason for fear. So I kind of heard that, and I said, okay, let's do that in my career. And I would give up my career to God. I would surrender. Our first step talks about being powerless and unmanageable. Surrender is giving up attachment to results. Everything I ever let go of has claw marks on it. No! I won't give that up. If I let go, and it's supposed to be mine, it's still mine. So I let go of some things. I let go of where my career was going, and it went where it was supposed to go. I'm still actively working in my career and grateful. My life today is so big. I would have never imagined. I couldn't have arranged this life with all the effort I was willing to put in. What I did was let go of my perceptions, the things I thought I needed and wanted to be happy. And I made an intention to be in God's will and to examine my thoughts, because my thoughts they're really default thinking. When I was a kid, if you weren't skinny, which I wasn't, then, I decided somehow from society, I got the fact that if you're not skinny, you ain't worth shit. I took that on and said, must be true. And that was my thinking. So that was my belief system. And all the other thoughts that I had about, my parents and what mom did, and she didn't want to grow old, and so she committed suicide before that would happen. So that gave me this terror of old age. And I remember, I'm 61 now. She died when she was 46. I remember looking in the mirror. I've been clean for many years, 16, 17 years by then. I remember looking in the mirror and saying, "What were you thinking, Mom? What terror was in your mind about what this means, growing old?" And I've really had to work on, what growing old means. What helps me is that millions and millions and billions of people have done it before me, and most of them didn't worry about whether their skin was saggy. That's kind of a US thing, maybe. I don't know. It's a current society thing. And so I can make a decision. The third step, I made a decision to turn my will, my thinking, over to the care of love. So what would love say about that? Love says, a wrinkle. So?
That's right.
And I remember I was clean. I got with this guy who had way too many teeth. They were good teeth, but there was a whole bunch of them. And he had Coke bottle glasses, Coke bottle, and my friends would all be just dogging me, like, what are you going out with him for? I said, he treats me so good. I love that. And I thought, if I can love this man, who apparently doesn't have the qualifications of Brad Pitt, then somebody can love me who doesn't have the qualifications of Angelina Jolie. And, so it started me understanding that it doesn't fucking matter what you look like. And you know, this whole weekend, I haven't put on any makeup, which is kind of unusual for me. I mean, I've been getting to that point, but it used to be, I remember one lady in front of our club said, she saw me without makeup, and she goes, "Oh my God, what happened to you?" I'm like, Jesus, I just don't have any makeup on. But you know, it fed into my fear of, oh, God, I gotta paint my face on and to look presentable. But so anyway, my thinking, that's kind of my problem. And my thinking just kind of, it zooms, it's happening all the time. It's repeating shit that I know is no longer true. And until I change my default thinking with intention, I have to intend to think differently. I have to decide if this no longer works, what does? What statement can I tell myself that would make me feel happy and warm and loved? And change all those sentences that say, you know, I used to have, in recovery, I would have all these things that I had done. I'm active in my career, I'm active in my recovery, I give back, and every sentence would happen with, but I'm fat, but I'm fat. You know, that was always the disqualifier of who I am, as if that's the only thing that matters. I had, because of all the drug use, I found out at 20 years clean that I had Hep C. So I was 302 pounds by then, because addicts say eat sweets and you won't have a craving. Well, that's in early recovery, and and we like to go out to eat after meetings, and you know, so all the things I told myself about why it was okay to be eating the way I was eating added 100 pounds to an already thick frame. So the doctor said, if you lose weight, this treatment will work better. And you know, that was just kind of the straw that broke the camel's back on, okay, there's just no reason to not love your body, to take care of your body. That doesn't mean I'm, you know, gonna be J-Lo abs. It just means that I'm gonna eat things that support loving my body. And so I lost 130 pounds. Lost dreams awakened. I knew I would never be a normal weight. And I gave up that belief. But until I was willing to give it up, until I was willing to say, that could be me, I could do that, then I wasn't going to. My beliefs are what decides my reality. Step 3, made a decision to turn my thoughts, my will, over to the care of love. So what is the loving thought that I need to do today? I get to decide that those default thoughts that I had that were given to me by my people aren't valid, and I don't like how they make me feel, and therefore I'm going to change them. And they happen in their own time, in God's time, when it's supposed to happen. That one happened at Hep C treatment time. I'm undetectable, thank you, God.
That's good.
And about 5 years ago, I Googled Orlando Angelo Delgado. That was my Puerto Rican. And I found his obituary. And he went back to Allentown and continued to use. And you know what happens is, that day he went back to Allentown, and I stayed. One day I went to a meeting. The next day I went to a meeting. The next day he got high. The next day he got high. So we were at the exact same place on this one day. And then our paths diverged. And his turned into death from active addiction. We're all gonna die. And we're all gonna learn the lessons love God has for us. What our choice is, are we gonna learn with joy, or are we gonna learn with pain? I didn't know that I could learn from somebody else. At this point in my recovery, I am so willing to not go through something and learn how to get through it because you did it. Okay, and then you did what? Okay, let me do that. You know, I don't have to have my own experiences all the time. I was a kicking, screaming, fighting, rebellious bundle of fear in early recovery through, I don't know, 25. You know, I didn't know that I didn't have to learn with pain. And, you know, my big lie that I would be happy with if I could only find a good relationship played itself out in so many abusive relationships where you could tell me what I wanted to hear, and that's all you had to do. Then you could beat me. Then you could, you know, do whatever you wanted. And I would always look at this other person and say, why are they treating me like this? It wasn't until I said, you know, my last big lie ended after 8 years in recovery with a recovering addict who had his demons of abuse and molestation and anger. And we both learned. He was willing to learn about himself, and we tried in many ways to work through this and stay together. And the biggest lesson I did was leave that relationship with peace. Like, we're done. I'm sorry it couldn't work out. And now I've been married for 2 years to my best friend. I could have never imagined that. I thought, okay, I'm willing to be single for the rest of my life. Fuck it. And that's when it changed. When I was willing to be healthy in a relationship and love me more than I love you. So God's will for me is to think with love. And I assign making a decision in every area where pain rears its head, and it still does. But the joy and peace that I have by being present in Atlanta, Georgia with you guys, it is just insurmountable. And I didn't even know what presence meant in early recovery. I'm like, well, is there a party? Where's the party at? And remember the Campbell's one that said, it's in there. And I'd look in there at year 5 and say, no, it's not. And I'd go out and look again, seeking. And now I look in there and I say, there it is. It's in there. It's in there. The party's in here. You can join me if you want.
Oh.